posted something on your social media page that was very powerful, right? It was a half face of KKK
Mhm.
Klan member and half face of an ICE member. Break that down. What that picture meant.
If you understand the history of this country, the Klan reemerged in the 20s. They were able to reemerge through law enforcement, starting in Indiana, and they spread across the country. What we're seeing with the ICE operation now is they're recruiting white supremacists to come into the agency and go in and terrorize communities. Now, let's not be fooled and think it's all about the Latino community. No, it's us too. When they're in Minneapolis and they're pulling over brothers and sisters from Sudan, they look like us. They look like all of us around this table. So it's one group today, it's another one tomorrow, it is us after that. We have to stand up. So what we're looking at is Klan activity masquerading as ICE agents.
Dion, what makes you want to host an NAACP award?
As a Black comic, the community, as you see, we need more comedy in our Black community.
Yeah.
I shouldn't. I don't have no turtleneck. I don't have no jacket. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing. It's gonna be off the cuff. Whatever, man.
Now you posted it on your.
Well, it's good to see a little fun going on there, but some serious talk as well. But welcome to another edition of Let It Be Known. I'm your host, Stacy Brown.
And I'm your co-host, Niele Anderson. I love joy. You know, what did Frankie Beverly say? Joy and pain.
Sunshine.
Right. We have a mixture of that this morning, you know, bringing you those headlines that bring you joys, blues, because Black folks are not a monolithic group of people. And we have all the emotions. And so we're going to try to mix it up, keep it, you know, bring you the news, but keep it light this morning. And to Derek Johnson's point, not only are they Klan, but it's also important to note out, Stacy, that slave catching derives or policing derives from slave catching. And so if you think about ICE, and if you think about when you hear terms like police sanctioned violence, state sanctioned violence, those are the origins of slave catching. So you got slave catching mixed with the Klan. That is a deadly concoction for America.
Do you know, and you're right, that's truly the first real police force, if you will, but the first official American police force was founded in Boston, Massachusetts.
That's right.
And but that was, you know, that was the official, you know, thing. But of course,
even the badge, even the sheriff's badge derives from a slave catcher's badge.
Yeah, how about that? Very true.
No. And you wonder why they want to get rid of Black history, because that's the story that we know and we tell. And so I see a comment about, you know, we're not talking about having police. We're talking about the origins of policing, and the origins of policing come from slave catching. So you tell me, if you create something with that mindset, that's what we talk about when we mean systemic racism. Policing goes up to slave catching.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of 6 federal.
Yes, it does. Persian version. I'm talking to Persian version.
Right.
I'm talking to all I'm saying is, yes, it does. And do your history, bro. Or sis, do the history.
But neither bro nor sis. This person's up. He or she just came on to antagonize. He's spewing racist stuff. He or she or whatever. I mean, if you look at what this individual's post, it's like, okay, why are you here?
I was just.
I'm not getting on you for it. I'm just saying certain people or bots or whatever they might be does not even, you know, deserve. You're far above.
Stacy, it's okay. I got it. I wanted to respond.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm just making a point. That's all. These idiots. Why are you watching? That would be my question. You come on before we even get started. They're like. So anyway, Um, no, Niele, you are 100% correct. I'm not in any way disputing you. Not at all.
But I think it's okay for me. It's okay to have these conversations and to address them because a lot of times it enlightens other people. So
Right. Well,
sometimes
go ahead.
that comment may be addressed to him, but it might enlighten
I
somebody
got
else.
you.
So conversation and discourse is okay. That's all
No,
I'm saying.
you're 100% correct. That's all. Six federal prosecutors in Minnesota resigned on Tuesday over the Justice Department's push to investigate the widow of a woman killed by an ICE agent and the department's reluctance to investigate the shooter. Joseph H. Thompson, who was second in command at the U.S. Attorney's Office and oversaw all of this fraud investigation that has messed up this so-called fraud investigators, messed up Minnesota's political landscape, was among those who quit on Tuesday. So there is that situation going on, Niele, with these folks quitting. They are absolutely quitting in the U.S. Attorney's Office.
I mean, good. That sends a message that America is not okay with what this Klan, and slave catcher mentality police force of America is doing. Good.
Yeah, without question. Without question. You're seeing some resistance, pockets of resistance here and there. You are. And you had to imagine that there would be some. I think you're seeing some even in Congress. And we'll find out even more. Even perhaps the Supreme Court will follow along. And if they start to follow along and do what they're supposed to do and rule on things the way they're supposed to, maybe you'll have a modicum of normalcy. I mean, normalcy that as we knew it is probably gone for good, but you have a modicum of it.
Yeah, I just hope that America is reading these headlines because this is a huge signal. I'm glad to
Mhm.
know that there was still some honesty in the Justice Department, Stacy. I thought they were all gone. I said,
Surprise,
praise God.
surprise.
Praise God. They still in there. They hide under the cabinets. I get it. I would be too. But I'm glad that there's still some left. I hope there's still some more in there.
You were surprised, wasn't you?
I was surprised. And I was glad about it. I was
Yeah.
glad about it, as the saints say.
Absolutely.
But this next story, before there was Rosa Parks, there
Yes.
was Claudette Cloven. And Claudette Cloven, a civil rights pioneer, has died at the age of 86, and her family and foundation is confirming this. Cloven, if you don't recall, was 15 when she refused to give up her seat on the Montgomery bus on March 2nd of 1955, which was 9 months before Rosa Parks. Now, although she was arrested for the violation of civil rights laws, and we hear Donald Trump talking about it's unfair to Black people, but she was arrested for violating civil rights laws, okay? Her act of courage sparked something and helped lay the groundwork for desegregation. And this is a story I'm so glad that's starting to come out because we always thought our beloved Rosa Parks, which is true, she did do something, but internally in our community, Stacy, a lot of people say it was a skin thing as to who got elevated in the movement. I say it was a progression. Some people say it was a skin thing. I don't know.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I've always found it interesting, but in some ways, I got it once. I knew the history, but in some ways, she had been forgotten for a long time
For
because
sure.
she was the first uh, with the bus situation, and of course later, Rosa Parks. Wasn't it the same year?
It
Just
was
a few
9
months
months
apart.
later. It was
9
not.
months
That's
later,
why I
yeah.
say I think it was more of a progression, like as you had people seated at the counters, and walking into restaurants to be fed. It was the Woolworth counter that got the shine, but I think it was just acts of people being bold, like those Department of Justice attorneys, just acts of people continually to be bold until the change came.
I have to say this since you was addressing the situation earlier. Individual says whites ended slavery. Are we supposed to give a prize for that? It's like you started the fire, burnt the house, killed all these people, and then you put the fire out. Are you supposed to get kudos for that? Nonetheless, yeah. And RNG mentions about Claudette Colvin. He says, "Let this sink in. She only lived 4 years of freedom since 1955, on probation from 55 to 2021. Yes, her record was finally expunged. I believe in 2021. Finally, after all of those years, Niele.
I mean, yeah, I mean, and I think that's the scary part of a lot of people, think it's so far away. It was so long ago. But that's, that fact right there shows you that, we are still dealing with the effects of Jim Crow and, getting our liberties of civil rights. We haven't, accomplished it all. It's still someday we'll be free. We shall overcome, meaning we ain't there yet. But progress, tremendous process has been made. Of course, we've had our first Black president, which set them off. But that's neither here nor there. Back to the subject, just that fact you said about her finally getting her record expunged. I mean, come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and some more sad news and some sad and stunning news in a way. John Forte of the Fugees, well, he contributed to the huge, influential The Score album, died at the age of 50. Grammy nominated. You remember he went to prison. He was sentenced to 14 years, but George W. Bush um, commuted his sentence when he was president. He served 7 years, I believe. And then he, according to everyone involved in his life, he really changed his life around. He took control of his music, his life really, and died at the age of 50. Wow, that's just so young when you consider.
Yeah, but his contributions to the culture, I mean, that album, The Score,
Oh gosh.
it look at what it did for Lauryn Hill, Wyclef. Praz is still on his way to prison, right? He hasn't gotten pardoned
He's
yet.
in prison. He's
Yeah,
in prison.
he
Yeah.
has a federal case. But John Forte, God bless him for his contributions. And that score is a blessing. That album, The Score, is a blessing because they still eating off of that. And so that
Yeah.
means he was still eating off of that.
Yeah. That was when they say groundbreaking, The Score was just that. It was the very definition of groundbreaking.
Yeah, and that was hip hop, right? You had so many variations of it, and meaning that people were talking about different things. It's hard to find a hip hop album now that speaks to like the culture, from R&B to female MCs talking about empowerment and getting it from a righteous state of mind. You know what I'm saying? And Wyclef playing instruments. You don't see a hip hop groups even anymore. When's the last time you seen a hip hop group? And so to know that he was part of, the behind the scenes, like he was a Greer. So
He was a what? He was a who?
Tapping. So, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I after The Score, I never really followed John Forte that much, but I do remember him on Michael Jackson's record Too Bad. And the way he comes into that song is just amazing. John Forte's Major Holiday, he uses that line, and then he goes into his just amazing way he blended into a Michael Jackson song. It was great. This guy was extremely extremely
And
talented.
see, you know, like that's a fact we probably didn't know. But to Michelle Madison, she said, "We shall overcome." When that was my point. Like that was my point. I was saying, just like someday we'll be free. We shall
Someday.
overcome. We ain't had it
Someday.
yet. We're still trying to get it. Tasted it sometimes, but that was my point.
I always
Get free.
say Black people have 8 days in a week: Sunday to Saturday and someday. That's our
Someday.
that's our
I
eighth
like
day. Our 8th day has always been someday. And Michelle, when she said that about overcome, you know what I thought about? We were talking about this just the other day. The Jeffersons in Florence. She said,
Oh yeah.
so how come we overcame and nobody told me?
Told me, you know, and some days, look, some days it feels like that. That's that someday factor.
Oh my gosh. We obviously RNG, we're gonna get into some black facts later, but he mentions a a different kind of fact on this date. In 1963 is when Alabama Governor George Wallace delivered his inaugural address declaring segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. And that speech, he says, was written by Ku Klux Klan leader Asa Carter. Wow.
That was in
Yes,
Tennessee, right? What's that at?
Tennessee.
What was that?
I believe it was Kentucky, but you might be right.
Kentucky. Okay.
You could be
All
right.
Well, nevertheless, prayers to the families Claudette Colvin and John Forte. May their memories keep them comforted, and you know, let's celebrate their lives, especially Claudette Colvin through service as we prepare to celebrate Dr. King, and that's what they gave their life for, service, and then celebrate some hip hop. Go play the score today.
And before we move on, Dr. Marilyn says she's not trying to be mean, but do we consider what rap has turned into really hip hop? That's a whole discussion. Wallace was in Alabama. I was thinking about the KKK guy, that Asa Carter that he was talking about, but you're right, Greer. Wallace was in Alabama.
Okay.
But that's
I would say it's hip hop. I would say it's rap. I don't think it's hip hop. You know, and I think that that's a healthy conversation to have, Stacy.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
To be able to tell, you know, hip hop is just it's a culture. You know, rap is, you know, the music. And I think people are making music now, and you know, not really like the culture, you know, setting trends. And I guess they do set. I think they're more followers of trends today, though. When I think of hip hop artists, I think they're more of like, I need the Louis Vuitton bag. I need to have these expensive things. Versus when hip hop to me was FUBU and cross colors. And you know what I'm saying? Medallions. It was what we made fly, not what corporate America made fly and expensive to where we had to attain it. So I think, I think it's rap today. I don't think it's hip hop.
Yeah, I think so too. In fact, it's so interesting because we've talked about this a lot. Old school, that's me. 80s, some 90s hip hop. You know, give it to me. And you know, I was texting just 2 days ago with Chuck D from Public Enemy. They're doing a show that they're on tour anyway, but I intend to go see them Sunday night, and he likes to talk on his social medias a lot. He brings up a lot of the old school stuff, and he keeps that alive. And that show has Public Enemy, Grandmaster Flash, Furious 5, I think what is it, Kumo D, and you know, that 80s stuff that has that flavor. Now, when you talk to Russell Simmons, when you say, you know, you stick with the original hip hop, the 80s and stuff, Russell always says, "Nah, don't do that. You got to get with today." Russell's down with today's stuff, whereas you know, Chuck really you know, puts a spotlight on his era.
But look at the variety of topics from those artists that you name that he's on tour. Look at the variety of topics that you're going to get from each set. Yeah. Today, bitch, hoe, nigga. Pop it, drop it, roll.
But let's not forget, even the so-called gangster rap when they labeled NWA gangster rap, and you know, Ice Cube, like they were talking some heavy things. Hip hop has always been about the poetry of our story, right?
Right.
Even when you look back, I mean, when Ice Cube dropped that his first solo record, I'm telling you, I listened to it damn near every day for 3 months.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and we even had the freaky with Uncle Luke. You know what I'm saying? But all we needed was Uncle Luke. We didn't need that much more. Okay. We had the 2 Live Crew and Uncle Luke. If you want to go to Miami, you know what to do, you know what to put on. You know, he gave us a birthday song. But it was a variety. Give us the variety back.
So you was doing the Tootsie Roll and all that?
But now remember, just think about it. Hip hop, I think well, I guess like all Black music has its era. Hip hop has had so many eras because you had the Southern era, the era of, you know, Outkast, you know what I mean? You had the era of
that's my point. Today, hip hop of today is horrible. It's horrible. You know, that's what we're saying. The 80s, the 90s.
All you got is really Kendrick is the only thing you got out here that's worth listening to.
I like J. No, I do like J. Cole.
Yeah, but when's the last time he made a project?
Yeah, but yeah. So like, yeah, that's true. And you might not see Kendrick for 5 more years. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but every time he drops something, I mean, it's fire.
You know,
every single time. He hasn't missed yet.
Right, but that's like a diamond in the rough today.
Surely.
Kendrick is a diamond in the rough today. He's today. We were talking about yesterday, today. Today, I think hip hop is very challenged with content. Now, like there's an artist called La Russell coming out of the Bay Area. He's unique. He makes fun music, right? Silly music that kids could just dance to. It's not about a status quo. It's not about a shake your booty or you don't want your daughter listening to her because you know what I'm saying? It's not that. But yeah, I think today's hip hop. Today is rap. That was the question. To hip hop or rap? Today we have rap. I don't think that it's hip hop. But there are some hip hop artists today. But today, the industry is delivering rap. That's just my opinion, Dr. Marilyn, to your question.
Dr. Marilyn had a lot to say, I noticed. Wow.
Yes, see, all the people she's talking about are,
yeah,
you know, people from the day. Georgie Porgy Pudding Pie, MC Light, you know.
MC Light, yeah.
There's a trend going on TikTok. And I'll keep forgetting to take it, but it's like Black women quoting MC Light's verse in Self-Destruction.
We should have MC Light come on. She's really cool. She has she's doing a lot of producing and promoting too. I know one of her artists is Howard Hewitt. She's really, the thing I like about her, and not is certainly not meant as a diss to anybody else in that field, but she's extremely articulate. She can really help you understand things that maybe you don't understand. You know, she really knows how to express herself and express, really hip hop. So we should probably have
speaking of express yourself, a headline that we didn't talk about, but since we're talking about hip hop, Salt and Pepper lost their lawsuit to get their royalties and rights back to their music.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, they were defeated. They got the Hollywood what is it? Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, but they lost that lawsuit and the rights to their music, unfortunately.
I thought it automatically reverts. The law, there's a law that says now it automatically reverts after
well, they were trying to get it. Well, clearly they were trying to get it sooner because they filed the lawsuit.
Well, wow. Hopefully they can, prevail on appeal or something, because it seems like it's been long enough. Gosh.
Now, let
But
me just throw those in there because I hope this wasn't on the topics and I just missed it. But did you all get that that thing out of nowhere, claiming that Diddy had disappeared from prison?
yes.
No,
Did
I
you
didn't
get
see
that?
I got it.
You saw it? Did you see it? Did you see it, Niele?
Yeah, in fact, I shared it with the thread that we have, and yeah, so I saw it. I don't think there's well, it's obviously not any truth to that. Well, let me not say that. You never know what's going on in those today in the federal realm of things, even federal prison.
Right.
So you don't know, and hey, hopefully Diddy is for his family's sake, hopefully he's okay.
Right. Well, speaking of, we told you we were going to mix things up, but we know that policing in this country is like a toxic concoction these days. So yesterday in Los Angeles, dozens of people filled the LAPD commission meeting to give public comments, demand justice, and the identity of the ICE agent that killed Keith Porter. Now, Porter was shot and killed by an off-duty ICE agency over the holiday, and this story is growing as we look at what's happening in Minneapolis. And so, on yesterday in Minneapolis, Georgia Ford, the journalist we had on earlier this week, she had a private press conference for journalists and released exclusive footage from the murder of Nicole Good. We know that Jonathan Ross is the person that murdered her. That's Keith Porter right there. And while that's happening in Los Angeles, as I was saying, what's happening in Minneapolis. And not only that, but the videos that we continue to see that flood our headlines of ICE agents, reminiscent of slave catchers. We started at the top of the hour about this, slave catching. So joining us now from Minneapolis, always boots on the ground, always is able to give us the truth, is attorney and Minneapolis organizer, Dr. Nakima Levy Armstrong. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to join you all.
Yeah, so I want to start with yesterday. I know there's some call to actions today that I want to talk to you about because the significance of who's leading it, I think that is important to highlight and talk about. But I want to go back to yesterday. Georgia Ford held a press conference. You spoke as well. Talk to us about the information that the two of you disseminated.
Yes, so Georgia got access to some exclusive yet extremely graphic footage of the aftermath of Renee Nicole Good being killed by the ICE agent. As you all know, the ICE agent, Jonathan Ross, opened fire on Nicole Good. He fired 3 shots, and at least 2 of which caused her to be shot in the face and or the head. And so with the footage that Georgia obtained, it showed the emergency medical services pulling her out of her vehicle. No signs of life in her body. You can see her head bobbing. It was that's all I could personally watch. But you could see her head bobbing back. But they pulled her out of the vehicle, laid her on the ground in the snow, right? Because it's cold out here in the midst of everything else that's going on. Cut her shirt open and exposed her. She wasn't wearing a bra. Exposed her out in the open. And Georgia basically took some still shots because she would not release that video to the media. She wanted them to see the video. But what she called the private press viewing was trauma-informed journalism. Thinking about the respect and human dignity of Renee Nicole Good, thinking about her family and what it would feel like to have that footage circulating online and all the media outlets having it, because typically when someone gets footage and they think it's compelling, there's a rush for the media to put it out. And they are not necessarily thinking about the impacts to everyone, including the victim's family, not to mention the deceased and the respect that the deceased deserves. So Georgia slowed everything down by explaining, why she was not going to release that footage, and also giving her analysis as someone who's been on crime scenes many times of double homicides, triple homicides. And she said typically there is some respect for the person's body. She said they have tarps that they can put over people. Right. They have sheets they can put over people. They did none of it. And there was no investigation there.
Joy, I want to just tap in because one of our viewers is asking, they put her on the ground in the snow, ? They just want to be clear they heard you right.
Yes, they put her on the ground, cut her shirt open. And so one of the stills that Georgia shared with the media, that she asked them not to share that still, that she kind of blew up, it was showing half of her face missing, or part of her face missing.
Jesus
from the gunshots. And so the protocols were like, what were the protocols? If there was no signs of life from Georgia's perspective, why did they move her body? If this is an active crime scene, right? And so the bigger context, as well as the fact that initially after this happened, the FBI claimed that they were going to allow the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension to participate in the investigation, in the use of force against Nicole Good, Renee Nicole Good. And then by the next morning, they said, nope, you were not letting the BCA, which is a Minnesota agency that investigates criminal conduct, but also they developed a use of force division to investigate police-involved killings after George Floyd. That was one of the demands that we put on the table. And so the FBI said, you're not getting access to any of the evidence that we collected. And so that led our elected officials to just be silent at first. The BCA came out saying, FBI kicked us out without their evidence. We can't do anything. And so we held our own press conference the day after Renee Nicole Good was killed. And we specifically put on the table, you can conduct a locally led independent investigation. You don't need the FBI. I mean, how many Black people do we know, particularly Black men, who have been charged and who have been convicted with less evidence than what we see in this case, right? We have video, we have eyewitness footage from several people and several videos from different angles, right? And because this footage that Georgia showed that they didn't conduct an official investigation on the scene related to Renee's body, then what is the BCA waiting on in terms of being able to conduct an investigation? FBI, how can they conduct a credible investigation? Clearly, they don't intend to. So after we did our press conference calling on local officials saying, you need to conduct the investigation, Minnesota taxpayers are relying on you, not the FBI. We didn't trust the FBI to begin with because they're corrupt under Kash Patel. And so these were, it was a Black-led press conference where we call these things out, because this is the part where our expertise kicks in terms of how many years we have been fighting for police accountability, dealing with government, knowing their playbook and how they operate, and knowing the pressure that needs to be applied to get them to take action. So by that night, after we put out our press conference and educated the public and put demands on the table, by that night, the governor had put out a cell phone video saying there needs to be a locally led independent investigation. By morning, the mayor, a county board commissioner, and several legislators held a press conference. There needs to be a locally led independent investigation. And by afternoon, AG Attorney Ellison and County Attorney Mary Moriarty held a press conference announcing a joint locally led independent investigation into the killing of Renee Good. Had we not done what we
Go
did,
ahead.
I was just going to say, had we not done what we did, they would have expected the public to accept the BCA's statement that there's nothing we can do because the FBI kicked us out. And we said, absolutely not. This is how they avoid accountability and responsibility, and we're not here for it.
Yeah, Nakima, there are two things I was thinking of. Both one is criminal and the other is civil, right? A constitutional law expert, and you're a lawyer yourself, but a constitutional law expert out of Northern Kentucky, Michael Mannheimer, said that the idea that a federal agent has absolute immunity for crimes they commit on the job is absolutely ridiculous. He said that more than 120 years of case law on the issues of so-called supremacy clause, of all things, it's called the supremacy clause, immunity has shown that federal officials can be criminally pursued by state prosecutors for conduct taken in the course of their official duties, but it's up to the courts, obviously, to ultimately determine if they're shielded, but they can be prosecuted. And then on the civil side, which is really where I wanted to go, Nakima, because that seems to be a little tougher. It's usually easier to file a civil suit against someone than bring criminal charges. But in this case, it seems that the only workaround for the civil would be the Bivens remedy, which allows individuals to sue federal agents for constitutional violations. Has there been any talk? We already know from the state, it seems like they're afraid to do anything, but has there been any talk that you've heard? And how would you advise them if they are the family pursuing any civil remedies?
Well, I can say that I have been in contact with a person who is connected to the family, and answered the questions that they asked me, and that's about as far as I can go, in terms of sharing, with the audience. But they're well within their rights, to file suit as a result of what happened in this situation.
I want to get back to something you were talking about. So we saw that Keith Ellison, they filed a lawsuit against the Justice Department. But what you were talking about earlier is something different. Now they're launching an investigation into the killing, which is totally different, right?
That's totally different. So in terms of them launching an investigation, typically after law enforcement kills someone, right, there should be some kind of investigation before they to determine is there probable cause to bring criminal charges in the case. So by the FBI seizing control of whatever evidence they have, refusing to share it, that means that our state law enforcement agencies or whomever conducts the investigation would only have the information from the videos as well as witness statements, and of course the body of Renee Nicole Good, which is evidence upon, within itself. And this evidence that Georgia uncovered yesterday, it shows that the FBI didn't come out there and they didn't see where her body was placed, the trajectory of the bullets, where they didn't do a normal investigation, right? And so that to me further reinforces why our state needs to be the ones taking the lead. And we're not asking for a perfect investigation, because when you prosecute young Black men, you don't have perfect materials. You have sometimes people who won't even cooperate, but you somehow manage to bring charges and get a conviction, right? And so the other thing that I think is important for folks to realize is that the BCA is comprised of cops. So when they first started, the reason they even started investigating use of force before George Floyd cases was because we put pressure on the system after a young man by the name of Jamar Clark was killed in 2015 by the Minneapolis Police Department. At the time, they shot him in the head at point blank range. At the time, I was a law professor, but I was also the president of the NAACP. And when I found out, the interim chief called me at 4 a.m. to tell me that this killing happened because I was NAACP president. So I texted the members and said, meet me at the location. We get out there, you wouldn't have known a murder happened. no yellow tape, no one in the street, nothing. So I told the members, go knock on the doors and ask people if they're willing to share what they saw. And so at that point in time, people came out in the streets. We held an impromptu press conference, and we demanded a third-party independent investigation because MPD would investigate themselves after they killed someone. That is standard practice in many law enforcement agencies across the country, to investigate themselves. Of course, they're going to say no probable cause, no crime happened, deadly force was justified, and that is a big part of how they get away with murder. But the mayor in this case, because we stayed in the streets for 18 days outside of that police precinct, we wouldn't even let the police leave out of their own precinct. So because of all that pressure we placed on the city, the mayor sent the case to the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. And that began the process where all of MPD's use of force cases were assigned to the BCA, including George Floyd. So remember, after George Floyd was killed, I called the chief to ask him if he knew what happened. And he said, no, it was a medical emergency. That's what they told him. He said, I said, are you sure? And he said, well, that's what I was told. And I said, have you seen video? He said, no. He said, I sent the case to the BCA. And I said, you need to see some video immediately. That's not what the community is saying happened. So this has become the go-to agency, for investigating police killings. But it was because of us, the Black community, demanding these things. It's not because the system did the right thing. The system never just does the right thing. It takes applied and consistent pressure to force them to do the right thing. And these are Democrats, who are making these decisions.
Yeah. Wow. Well, as RNG said, and you said, he said, you're right. He says the police will investigate themselves and find nothing wrong. And we do see that all across the country.
Yeah, I mean, you've been going, I think, I'm glad that you're going backwards and forwards so people understand that this is a constant issue. And so when we look at what was happening with Renee Good, the whistles, the pots and pans, the alerting of what's happening, I think people don't even understand what's actually happening day to day right now in Minneapolis with ICE. Right. They are continuing to terrorize your communities. People are not showing up for work. They're attacking you as citizens. Talk to us about the escalation that is continuing in the city right now as we speak.
Well, I think that folks need to understand, number one, why this is happening, right? We know that Donald Trump is, in general, retaliating against cities that he considers to be liberal, and progressive and diverse. But Minnesota is to a whole other level. Why? Because remember, our governor, Tim Walz, ran to become vice president of the United States as Kamala Harris's running mate. And he called out Donald Trump, he called out MAGA. And since that time, our state has become a target. It was already somewhat of a target because he doesn't like Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who is a Somali American. And so during COVID, there was this program called Feeding Our Future, where organizations were able, and restaurants and different companies, primarily Somali, were able to get money and claim that they were serving meals to children in the community. Now, the face of Feeding Our Future is actually a white woman. A woman by the name of Amy Bach. She is the person that was able to get access to literally hundreds of millions of dollars. And she signed up all these nonprofits and companies and restaurants, and they were committing fraud. And as a matter of fact, once our local government caught on to it, she said she threatened to sue. If you don't pay these invoices, we are going to file suit. So they kept paying them, to the tune of an excess of $250 million in fraudulent activity. And again, most of these
the white woman. The white woman.
Okay. But you don't see her being called the face of fraud by Donald Trump. So after this all happened, the U.S. Attorney's Office actually started investigating these cases. and started putting Somali people on trial, and they started actually being convicted. So dozens of them have been convicted. Amy Bach was even convicted. So Trump used that, even though the system was working in terms of accountability. Donald Trump used that as a political weapon against Governor Tim Walz, because it happened on his watch, and against the state of Minnesota. And so then he sent ICE agents here. And then after that, they bullied the governor so bad around this scandal. He was running for a third term. He dropped out of the race for governor last Monday, right? On Tuesday, the following Tuesday, January 6th, Kristi Noem comes to Minneapolis and declares, we are going to deploy the largest number of ICE agents in U.S. history to the state of Minnesota. We're going to send 2,000 ICE agents there. The day after that, Renee Nicole Good gets murdered by an ICE agent. So all of this is interrelated in terms of how we got here. And then, you know, our mayor went viral for saying, get the F out of Minneapolis after Renee Good was killed. Well, not only did they not get the F out of Minneapolis, they actually sent hundreds more ICE agents, redeployed them from Louisiana, you know, to come here. And so, like you said, every day they've been terrorizing people. I saw a video yesterday where they cut off a woman's seatbelt, and this is an American citizen, broke the passenger side window of her car and dragged her out of the car. And the woman said, I have a disability. You think they cared? No. And she was merely trying to drive her car through, you know, their, you know, little checkpoint or wherever they had set up so she could get to a doctor's appointment. You know, and she was yelling at them about what they were doing. And their response was to physically assault this woman. And she's one of many. They've kicked down people's doors in the Black community as well. Because, you know, we have people from Liberia, you know, of course, Somalia, other places that live amongst native-born African Americans, right? They also live in their own communities. But just over the weekend, they kicked open this Black man's door from Liberia with these big guns, came into that house, took that man, you know, and it was all over the internet, people in our community afraid. Now, this is after, remember what was happening when all this started, when Trump took off? People in our community were largely saying, you know, we're sitting this one out. This isn't our problem. Well, it is our problem because they don't care if you are American or not.
Nakima, before I want to talk about the profile of an ICE agent. Somebody in the chat, Stan Wayne, says ICE agents are IDF soldiers. There was a story that came out that's going around about how the IDF and like our government has an office in Israel that, you know, some of these agents get training from IDF. So I want to talk about the profile. Who do you think these ICE agents are? We know their words. Derek Johnson, president of NAACP, said, you know, it's the Klan. It's reminiscent of the Klan. Based upon the interactions and what you're seeing boots on the ground, talk about the you know, who these ICE agents are, their profiles, and how they interact, and who you think they are.
Well, if you look at the profile of Jonathan Ross, the ICE agent who killed Renee Good, it's a good example of who they are. In terms of his background, he's an Iraq war veteran. He also worked for Border Patrol in Texas. He's a firearms instructor. He's also someone who operates the machine gun, you know, during military operations. And he was a part of a joint FBI task force. So, you know, some of the agents are not well trained. They might be deputized bounty hunters, but he has an extensive military background, a trained killer, a MAGA lover, someone who was known to defend white supremacists online, and married to a Filipina immigrant. That is who Jonathan Ross is, right? And the other aspect, when you think, and Christian, quote unquote. So you got to think about his actions in light of that background And the fact that Renee Good was not only a mother and a wife, but she was a queer woman. Her wife was walking to the car and said something to the ICE agent because he was being aggressive. And she said, all right, big boy, you know, maybe you need to go have some lunch. She said that immediately before he opened fire on Renee Good. And he, in my opinion, he knew that this was a lesbian couple. But then you look at Renee Good's response. She said, I'm not mad at you, dude. And she tries to back her car away. She's smiling. She's kind. And literally, he stood right there in front of her car and shot her in the head like she was a criminal. And then you have the federal government, you know, saying this is domestic terrorism on her part. She was a threat, just lying and lying and lying. And that has led to 6 U.S. attorneys making the decision yesterday to resign because the federal government
this morning.
asked them to investigate Renee Good's wife, Becca Good, and not investigate the killing by this ICE agent. So that's why we don't care what the FBI does. So why our state criminal justice agency would be saying, let us in, like the devil is a liar. They're not paying your salary. We are.
Well, I think people are Stacy.
Yeah, by the way, speaking of the names, there is a big story. I think Daily Beast has it. Massive Homeland Security data leak. It has exposed the names of 4,500 ICE and Border Patrol staff. So you guys can check that out. They have, it includes the names, the work emails, the phone numbers, the job roles, some resume details. There's a whistleblower in the Department of Homeland Security that has provided this list. So there's more information to come.
Good. I'm glad that they're putting that information out there because when they come out to terrorize our community, they're wearing masks. Right.
Yes.
So you can't even see their identity. And the
Clannish,
reason
very clannish.
it is clannish. The entire thing, it's like he's unleashed hellhounds in our community, people who support him, and it's a reward, right? They're not just doing this for free. They're being paid a really nice amount of money to come out and terrorize people. And even though there are laws in place, they are violating the laws. They're violating people's constitutional rights. They're targeting American citizens. So if they see you out there blowing a whistle, you can become a target. They're driving up.
Speaking of Target, I saw one of the ICE commanders in Target.
But he's the Border Patrol commander.
And I mean the connection as to the boycott. For those of you who don't know, the Target boycott that continues to go was started in Minneapolis by the Racial Justice Network and a couple other networks that Attorney Levy has partnered with. I'm
the founder. Yeah, I'm the founder of the Racial Justice Network. So
right.
I'm one of the 3 original founders of the Target boycott because it's based here in Minnesota.
And so talk about the connection just very briefly before we wrap up. But, the connection between Target, policing, and what's happening in the city now.
Yes. So what started happening once ICE got here was that ICE started staging for its raids in Target's parking lots. And so we had to have press conferences in collaboration with some of our immigrant rights organizations to call attention to the fact that Target was allowing these ICE agents to stage in their parking lots. And Target tried to deny it, even though there was plenty of evidence that they were allowing this to happen. They weren't issuing statements. There's no sign on the door that says ICE isn't welcome here. It's essentially a free-for-all at Target. So there have been some videos that have been released showing ICE agents tackling a Target employee to the ground who was a U.S. citizen, like 5 or 6 on this, little skinny young, looks like Latino man, in the entrance to a Target because he was filming them, and he was cursing at them. And they used that to chase him back into the store. An actual employee tackled him to the ground and captured him. And there have been other incidences as well where Bovino, who is the commander of Border Patrol, and several of their agents and ICE agents went to use the bathroom in Target. And we're saying, well, we thought the bathroom was private and for shoppers. Why are y'all just letting ICE come in and use the bathroom? Right. And so there have been multiple incidences involving Target stores. And people are like, I can't believe this is happening at Target. And we're like, we told y'all that's why the boycott is going on. You know, people thought it wasn't a big deal. And now they're seeing that Target's whole energy is complicit with what is going on, just as they capitulated to Donald Trump within the first week of his second presidency by announcing they were rolling back diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is all related. They care about us.
Nikema, we have to wrap up, but there's a call to action today. And I think it's pretty significant on who's leading it, why it's happening. We have about 60 seconds. Can you let us know about it?
Yes. So like I said, I'm the founder of the Racial Justice Network. And today we are holding a press conference in collaboration with other organizations where we are calling on women and mothers to join us at Minneapolis City Hall this afternoon to demand justice for Renee Good. And for us, immediate justice is the arrest of Jonathan Ross, the ICE agent who killed Renee Good, and answers from our local government. Is this investigation happening? Then who from law enforcement is responsible? What is the timeline? And we're also calling on greater protections for women and expectant mothers who are detained by ICE or who have encounters with ICE. Because again, women are being dragged and attacked, killed like Renee Good, you know, when we're women, you know, out there literally blowing whistles or driving in the car, and they are treating women as if they are armed combatants of the state, right? And we're saying enough is enough. We need safeguards and protections from women. Congress needs to step up because Congress is the one that actually has control and oversight over ICE. Congress funds ICE, but what has happened? Congress has been silent, which is unacceptable. Where's our Congressional Black Caucus?
Well, okay, so I want to stop there because you're going to come back because you, along with Georgia Ford and Toussaint Morrison, are definitely trusted sources that we will be tapping in with. But I do want to end with Ayanna Pressley. She has been on the forefront pushing. Yesterday, she dropped her bill to get rid of qualified immunity for ICE agents. She also had a bill to do investigations. Although she gets turned down, she is on the front line on this matter, and she's making it a top priority for sure.
I'm glad she is, and I hope they join her.
I do too. But thank you. Be safe. You got a lot of comments saying be safe out there. Godspeed, and we'll check back in with you next week.
And Niele, can I respond to one thing? I see somebody saying she got to be an immigrant. Well, guess what? I'm the descendant of enslaved people. I'm not an immigrant. I am an African-American person, native born, descendant of enslaved people who cares about humanity. And I'm hoping we all do. Thank y'all for having me.
Peace out. Talk to you soon and keep us updated. All right, folks. Before we get out of here, we hope that you have been informed by that conversation, giving you insight as to boots on the ground, what's happening in Minneapolis. We're going to check in with LA as well a little bit later, either the end of this week or top of next week. But we want to end with something that you need to know because it's happening today. The 2028 Summer Olympic Ticket Lottery opens this morning with tickets as cheap as $28, y'all. Now, the 2028 Summer Game Ticket Lottery opens today at 7 a.m. Pacific time. So that's 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this window of a lottery system runs from this morning to March 18th. Now, this is how it works, okay? First, you have to register by visiting la28.org, and you have to create a profile and enter the ticket draw. Now, if chosen, because it's a lottery, if chosen, you'll get an assigned time slot to buy your tickets. They'll send you a link during the time slot era, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're guaranteed tickets. So first you got to register this morning to get in the lottery. And then once you get your time slot, you know what to do. Now, they're providing over 1 million tickets set at a base of $28. I want
That's
some
awesome.
$28 tickets.
That is awesome.
Now, people living in Southern California and Oklahoma City will qualify for an exclusive local pre-sale ticket in April, but you have to enter today or between now and March 18th to qualify. And if you're wondering why Oklahoma City, the canoe and softball events will be held in Oklahoma City. Now, don't forget, all you have to do is visit LA28.org. And then the Paralympic tickets are available for purchase in 2027. But this morning, I'm registering, Stacy. I'm on my ticket.
She'll be at the Olympics. That's great. 28. Remember what we said, the World Cup, those tickets are outrageous, but $28, I think I might be able to.
I have everybody in my family on. Hey, get registered.
All right, we're gonna have a couple of black facts for you before we get out. On this date in 1969, black students at the University of Minnesota was frustrated by discrimination and neglect, so they took over Morrill Hall after being prohibited from dormitories, fraternities, and sororities, and seeing no programs responsive to their experiences. They organized through the Afro-American Action Committee, and they were led by John Wright. The students presented demands to university leaders and issued a 24-hour deadline, then occupied the building for 2 days when no action followed. The protests led to the creation of the Martin Luther King program and the Afro Studies Department, where Wright later became a professor. So their protests really paid off back in Minnesota on this date, 1969. And we're talking about protests in Minneapolis, Minnesota now. So
right. No, and I think, this story, coupled with what Nikema said about how yesterday Georgia Ford organized that press conference and that screening, which led to Keith Ellison to respond, which led to the city attorney respond and motion to happen. And then we talk about what's happening in LA with activists showing up the police commission. I mean, there is power in the people. And I think that story coupled with what we're seeing across our country. And at the end of that, who's holding the line? It's a black people.
Black people?
We hold the line.
Listen.
It was a black-led press conference yesterday that pushed the attorney general, the mayor, and the city attorney to start an investigation. A black-led media conference.
Okay, before you get to your black fact, I got one more surprise black fact, or out of line black fact anyway. So I got all this stuff here, folks, and I just dropped the card. But 21 years ago today, I walked down the aisle with my wonderful wife who tapped in a little while early and said happy anniversary. But 21 years ago today, and she gave me this. I don't know what's in it, but I'll find out after we sign off.
Oh, happy anniversary.
Black history. This is black history for you.
Right. Happy anniversary. Black love. Black love. I love to see it. I love to speak it. So we're going to stop in the name of love. And
stop in the name of love.
Diana Ross and the Supremes. On this date in 1970, Diana Ross and the Supremes performed their final concert at the Frontier Hotel in Las Vegas, marking the official end of the iconic lineup before Ross launched into her boss solo career.
Boss. Yeah, the boss. I mean, look, we talked about, was it yesterday or the day before was another Motown related black fact. But Motown was just, it's almost like y'all, if people didn't know, they would say y'all making it up. It's just too good to be true.
Yeah. But we'll be back tomorrow with more news, more headlines that are important to the Black experience, of course. We're going to ride this Lynn way. We're going to continue to ride it. So for the latest in Black news, support Black Press by visiting BlackPressUSA.com.
We will see you again tomorrow. Take care.